Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's LinkedIn Loving Live, where we are shining a light on the world's leading B2B social media platform. That, of course, is LinkedIn. And I'm delighted today to be joined by Leadership Development Specialist Ross Jones, who's going to help us understand how we can use our own self-leadership to respond differently to LinkedIn when it feels like it's messing with our heads. I don't know if you feel like that at the moment, but a few people are complaining about LinkedIn at the moment. And I get it, because I know myself how frustrating LinkedIn can be. You know, I remember a few years ago, LinkedIn introduced a significant new feature and tinkering as it does in the background. And it completely messed up my profile views. I could literally see the profile views dropping. And I went into meltdown. I did. I was like, what's going off here? And, you know, it felt like that was my self-worth, the number of profile views. And I really had to stop and step back and remind myself that it's just a number. What does it actually mean? You know, it's not the whole story. It doesn't define me, doesn't define whether I'm good at what I do, whether my business is working, and so on and so forth. So, you know, for me, it's a thing about social media that I don't like, because I think it makes us feel as though it's a measure of how popular or successful we are. Well, so which is why I'm delighted that Ross is joining us today to talk about how we can change our relationship with LinkedIn for the better. Because, you know, we can't control LinkedIn. We can't control the algorithm or the numbers, but we can control how we respond to them. So Ross, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Judy. Hello. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm pleased to be here.
Yay. I'm delighted that you're here. It's fantastic. So just before we start though, Ross, I just want to let people know that if they're new to these love-ins, wondering what the heck they are short, bite-sized LinkedIn learnings over lunch. And every month I'm joined by a guest expert to share their expertise on subjects that will help them support their LinkedIn activity and results. Now, I do like to make them as interactive as possible. So for those of you who are able to join us live, if you've got any questions, please do put them in the comments box on the events page. If you're watching the replay, please also add your questions in there, and Ross and I will get back to them when we can. So thank you for joining us. So quick question for everyone. How do you feel about LinkedIn? Are you feeling a little meh about LinkedIn at the moment? Let us know your thoughts, yes or no. Are you loving it or hating it? But let's crack on and get all Ross's lovely, wise wisdom, which I'm super excited about. So, Ross, self-leadership. What is it? And why does it matter when we're trying to show up on LinkedIn?
Thanks, Judy. That's a great question. So for me, well, just a bit of background, I guess. So I'm a business coach, and what I was finding was that the people I was working with or who were coming to me asking for help, they were often interested in the leadership of their teams, but what they weren't looking at was the leadership of themselves.
Right.
So I felt that there was a sort of a big gap there in terms of what we're looking at. Sometimes we're thinking, is it LinkedIn that's working, or actually is it me that's working? So it's about looking deeply at ourselves. It's about raising our awareness to find out more about ourselves, really, and how we work. And why does it matter when we're trying to show up on LinkedIn? It matters because we need to raise our awareness of how we're thinking and feeling about LinkedIn.
Well, exactly. And I guess my experience demonstrates that, doesn't it? Because how can a platform impact your, I guess, my mental or emotional well-being in such a way? Why would I let it do that? So that would be a lack of self-awareness of that's happening. Is that the case?
Yes. So what happened, because we're so busy all the time, we're non-stop busy, so we don't give ourselves time or space just to consider really on a deep level what's happening. And we're all, as human beings, we all have an ego, and we all have various core fundamental beliefs. We've all got them. Most of us don't know that we've got them, but if we take the time now to consider, we'll realize we have. There are actually 12 core fundamental beliefs that we inherit from our parents, and not in any malicious way. It just happens when we're very, very young. And these core beliefs are embedded into our ego. So what happens is that we may have, so I'll just give you a few. Core beliefs are things like, I am not worthy, I am not good enough, I don't belong, I am powerless, I feel that I don't trust the world. These are things that we don't necessarily know about ourselves, but they are embedded in our ego. So what will happen, LinkedIn is, or social media generally, but LinkedIn especially, will expose this, will expose our ego's frailties, if you like. And so when you have what you had, that experience, your ego will jump in, and your ego tries to protect yourself. So if you do have this core fundamental belief that you're not good enough, and suddenly your figures are dropping, it's confirming that to your ego.
Yeah.
Your ego wants to keep you safe, so it will step back.
Yeah, so it's triggering me. It's triggering that unconscious ego, or I believe it's unconscious ego of mine that's going, I'm not good enough, or, you know, I'm not popular enough, or whatever. I don't, whatever it might have been.
So LinkedIn doesn't make you feel that. Your ego makes you feel that. LinkedIn is just a platform. Yeah.
It is, and I think that's what we have to remember, isn't it? It's just a platform, and stuff. So I've just like Richard here has just put a little comment on. He said, in my experience, the levels of engagement on LinkedIn have plummeted, although I'm quite prepared to be told it's me. quite Richard, quite.
Your numbers may have plummeted, but it's whether we get upset about that makes a difference, isn't it?
It's how we respond, isn't it? You know, it's you know, what is it? So, you know, what we're doing when we're thinking about LinkedIn isn't working for us, it's that ego is kicking in, and that's impacting what we do on LinkedIn and what the actions we take.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, I think we've talked about this before, but it's the thought loop, isn't it? You know, we have a thought, so we see the results, we get this thought that thinks, oh, I'm not good enough or whatever. We have this feeling of not being good enough. And so that affects how we then react or behave. And so you can go around on this vicious cycle, really, of letting the results impact your thinking and your feelings if you're not aware of them or aware of what's happening.
Yeah. So I guess the big question is, how do we get aware of it? You know, how do we realize that's what, you know, if we see that, I guess we won't see it, but, you know, how can our thoughts about LinkedIn affect what we actually do on LinkedIn? What can we do about it?
So we just have to pause and slow down and pause. You see, the thing is, we are human beings like to be part of the tribe, and you know, in ancient times, we have to, you know, that's how we were safe in a tribe. So if we're looking at other people and seeing they're getting great results and we're not, we're feeling that we don't belong. That's our core fundamental belief. Or maybe we've got this unknown fear that we're going to get kicked out of the tribe because we're not as good as them. That's when we compare ourselves with other people, that's definitely going to affect how we think and feel and how we behave. So it's just slowing down enough to be aware of what we're thinking. Actually, it's not true. I am part of my tribe. People do like me. I know my posts are good. My wisdom is good that I'm sharing. So just being aware that maybe LinkedIn's algorithm is not reacting how we want it to, but it's not to do with us personally.
And I get that. I guess for me, what I'm thinking is that thinking back to when I had this experience with the profile views literally dropping, it took a while for me to recognize what was happening. And I know what you're saying is pause, but how do you get out of the trap of realizing that it's you and your thoughts that's causing the problems, and how you respond to it is what's making you feel bad or negative or whatever?
Well, I mean,
subconsciously, you know what the problem is, but how do you get out of it? Sometimes I think.
Yeah, so it's about, well, basically a self-leader takes ownership of their thoughts and their feelings. Right. And so it's just recognizing what it is that's going on, and just stepping back and just maybe reevaluating. But if you see, this is the thing about LinkedIn and social media generally, it will expose these frailties of the ego. And for example, and we get trapped, don't we? We're thinking everybody's on LinkedIn. I need to be on LinkedIn, and then you're told, go on courses, and you're told that the algorithm expects you to do this and that at this time of the day, and then you go on holiday and you're terrified that you've fallen, that the algorithm has betrayed you, and all this kind of thing. It's actually recognizing what you're thinking. Like, in reality, it doesn't make sense, does it? Really?
It doesn't make sense, does it? And that's what you're saying about slow down and pause. And yeah. I know I've seen a lot of people who, and I think it's a really good idea to do this, to actually take a break from LinkedIn and from social media, take that digital detox, just to stand back. And I think it's about understanding, why are you on LinkedIn, and what is it you want LinkedIn to do, rather than trying to keep up with the Joneses, as it were. Not with you, obviously, but with
well, that's the thing, isn't it? Sometimes, it's when we're in business, we feel that there's a lot of pressure that we have to be on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. But we have to be on LinkedIn. But do you have to be on there do you have to share posts, for example? Do you want to have it as a profile on it? So we get caught up in this trap of doing what everybody else is doing. You don't even have to be on social media at all, do you, really?
No,
that's not the only way to promote it. So I think we need to recognize, are we being trapped and caught up in this hamster wheel of being on a platform that actually maybe we don't even like, So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a big believer that if you don't like LinkedIn, you don't need to be on it. It is a tool, one of many in your marketing kit bag that you can use. And, all I say to people, if you're going to be on LinkedIn, just have a good profile and then leave it to do its thing while you go do whatever it is that you want to do with your networking or Facebook or whatever platform of choice you may have.
But it's interesting. I mean, this happened to me a while ago, and I was noticing all the figures were going down, and I just thought, do you know what? I'm just not going to use LinkedIn anymore. And then suddenly, I just put up a post about my book club, and I got an inquiry about somebody wanted to join my book club. So, I think it's just being aware that, do you want to be on the platform? Is it doing for you what you actually? Why are you on LinkedIn, as you said? Are you on there for sales? Are you on there because everybody else is? Are you on there because you love it? Or are you on there, just because you were told to be? I think it's understanding why you're on there. And the other thing is, if you are finding yourself feeling, not that LinkedIn's making you feel this, if you're finding yourself feeling despondent or meh, as you say, about LinkedIn, then, just consider, is it right for you? Because I'm a big believer that when we're in business, we should be doing the things that give us joy, really. That, it's a hard slog. You're going to find it a hard slog. So I would think, does it give you joy? And if it doesn't, move on. Or understand why it's not giving you joy.
Yeah. And just accept that you're doing it because you've got a reason for doing it. But I love that. Does it bring you joy? And that's really something that we should all be asking ourselves, regardless of what we do, isn't it, in our lives? Will this bring me joy? And for me, it's very much of letting go of the results or the outcomes, letting go. Because I think I mentioned to you, I did a post last week. And, the whole thing about LinkedIn, you do a post, you've got to get engagement within the first couple of hours, and blah, 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 blah. I had one impression. And I was like, wow, what's going off here? And, it's like, well, what do I feel about that? What do I do about that? That's kind of does bring up things like that. Says, well, why does LinkedIn hate me so much? Why isn't it not sharing my posts? And it's a bit of a nightmare, really, in that respect. But again,
so it's not LinkedIn. What did you do about that?
I left it up there because I kind of have got to terms a little bit with LinkedIn. Somebody once said to me that LinkedIn's a bit like a bad boyfriend. It's one of those things that, you know, you keep going back to, even though you think it ignores you or doesn't do as you want it to do and stuff. But I left it up there because I know that I can always delete it if I need to, do it again. You know, it's not going to be the end of the world. But you know, actually what happened, because, you know, the LinkedIn algorithm changes and stuff like that, somebody made a comment, and actually I got more traction as the days went on, and I've now got 50 likes and so many comments, and I've gone, you know, my impressions have increased. And I think this is the problem, isn't it? If you focus on the impressions and these numbers of how your posts are doing, then it's giving you the wrong story. It's giving you, I mean, there are important to keep an eye on, but it's not the right story, because like you said, you've got a lead from your post, and that's more important.
Yeah.
Than anything else.
You know, it's like I had a post once a couple of years ago, went viral. I mean, it was just astonishing. I've never had that before. And it was a post about toilets. And you know,
that's typical, isn't it?
Well, it was actually about customer service, so it was related to business coaching. But the fact that it went viral was all because people were getting excited about the idea of using pub toilets. But you know, so I think you're absolutely right that it's, you know, we shouldn't really be focusing on that kind of thing. It's really going back to why you're on LinkedIn anyway. You know, just going back, what is your intention of using LinkedIn? And if it's not really connected to something tangible about your business, or if it doesn't give you joy, then you really need to question that, why you're on there. Yeah.
I think you're right. Richard makes a good point, actually, because his primary motivation for posting on LinkedIn has never been for approval, but to build his brand and reputation, which he says he accepts takes months and years. And that's the whole point. That's where this is all about consistency, isn't it? It's not just about posting, you get nothing and then going, it doesn't work. It's just about being there and having that presence. And whether you get one impression or it goes viral, shouldn't actually matter. It's just you keeping and building your brand and your consistent presence on there.
Yeah, and you do, you know, the people having a profile there, building your brand and having your profile on there. You know, when people meet you at networking or they hear about you, they'll often go either to your website or check you out on LinkedIn. So it's good to have a profile there anyway.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And the other thing is, whether you've got likes or comments or whatever, AI will find you. If somebody's searching for something that you're a specialist in, AI will find you from your stuff on LinkedIn. So it's always got there should always be a purpose for everything you do, in terms of absolutely right, Richard, in terms of building your brand is a great way to do that. But I think what we need to do is step back from our ego in terms of thinking that LinkedIn is making us feel in a certain way, because LinkedIn, nobody can make us feel anything. Only we can make us feel anything.
Yeah. So if you are feeling a little sort of meh about LinkedIn, if it's messing with your head, it's because you're letting LinkedIn or any other social media platform do that. And so we need to go back and recognize that.
We do, but in a compassionate way. This is not about beating yourself up or your ego up. It's just like our ego is there to keep us safe. That's what our ego is for. And basically, if we're feeling that we're not good enough because we're not getting enough likes, that's our ego talking, and that's what we have to remember. It's not our true self; it's our ego. So it's not about beating yourself up. It's about remembering that we're humans, and all humans have an ego, and actually thinking to myself, does this give me joy? Is this or am I being kind to myself, the way I'm behaving to myself, or the thoughts I'm thinking? Just being compassionate to yourself is like quite a wonderful thing to do on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, isn't it? And I guess if you're in that cycle of thinking, this isn't working, LinkedIn is rubbish, it's whatever, it's recognizing those thoughts that are going through your head and going, how can I look at it differently? So how would you change that loop that's in your head? Would you just go, take a breath and then?
Yeah, I would step back and I would just go back with however you work. I'd get a blank piece of paper out, and I would say, well, basically I'd go right back and I'd say, okay, so what so what do I want to do on LinkedIn, or what am I using LinkedIn for? Just remembering, going back to what are you on LinkedIn for? Just being really clear about that. And if it's to build your brand, so what can I do to build my brand? And it's just really stepping back and thinking, feeling with your heart, really, your intuition. Your intuition knows what you want to be doing. So it's really going back and saying, what do I want to be doing? It's not about how you're feeling, it's about what you want to be doing. And then just come up with a little plan. I mean, I know that you're full of lovely strategies for what to do on LinkedIn, Judy, but what do I want to do? Is it that I want to build connections? So just build connections, but just do a bit every day. It's about being consistent. Do I want to post on LinkedIn? Maybe you don't want to post on LinkedIn. If you do want to post on LinkedIn, then just post on LinkedIn and just do it every day, and just remember keeping your intention focused. What is my goal here? What's my intention for being on here? And just remembering that and staying focused on that rather than checking out what everybody else is doing, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I must admit, I do have an issue with comparing myself to others, and I recognize that. And I think, yeah. And that is a, is that a bad thing? Because does it help us keep us not getting, what's the word when you get sort of complacent? Does it, we don't want to get complacent, do we? But I do see other people's posts and I think, oh my God, that's brilliant. I wish I'd have thought of that. And, and then I'm beating myself up with being, oh, why didn't you think of that kind of stuff? Yeah, that's a bad thing to do, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't label it bad. It's just a thing, I wouldn't say it's bad. What we do, we judge ourselves, don't we? We judge other people, we judge ourselves, all of that stuff. So, it's not bad. And in fact, actually, that's a really good point, actually, because when something doesn't work, it's really about what can I learn from that. So if you see somebody else doing something really fabulous, well, actually, what are they doing? What is it that they're doing? Maybe they're doing things every day. I follow people that are doing something every single day on there, and they've said they've been doing it, I don't know, 20 years, maybe not 20 years, but a long time. Every single day they've been doing stuff. And so, as I think it was Richard said, it takes time to build that up. I mean, sometimes you can get like a sudden response, but usually, you see people, you might look at people and say, oh, they're so successful, but it's probably because they've been doing something consistently every single day or week or whatever, and it's building up, and that's what we need to do. But what they haven't let themselves do is be distracted by comparing themselves with other people, or letting their ego think, oh, this is not going to work,
I'm not going to bother, it doesn't work. Yeah. And that's a really good point, isn't it? Because I think that's what they say, isn't it, about Olympians? The fact that they're getting their gold doesn't show you all the hard work, the dedication, the commitment that they've had to get to that point. Now, I know that's a very sort of extreme example for using LinkedIn, but some people have been, I have been on LinkedIn a long time, but it's just that comes back to consistency, and probably people are getting a bit bored of hearing the word consistency. But if it is getting boring, it's got to be kind of true. But it just comes back to LinkedIn is just a tool. Understand your why, and don't allow it to mess with your head.
Yeah, be aware enough. And going back to the consistency thing, this is the thing really as well, is that we have got into this habit of wanting things immediately, haven't we? We want quick fixes for everything.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
That very, very rarely happens. And I have people say to me that I say to people, as a business coach, I'm not a magician, although I do have my ingredients that this needs to work are consistency and focus. So going back to what's your goal, what's your intention, what's your outcome from using LinkedIn, and staying focused on that, and then doing the consistent practice about whatever it is that you want to do, and then learning if you're not getting comfortable, what you have to do to tweak it or adjust it. But there's no point, as you always say, Judy, there's no point trying to keep up or beat the algorithm, because nobody knows what it is.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I just think keep doing your thing and, you know, learn about some sort of tips and tricks and stuff like that. But honestly, let it go, let it go. And I think that's how we can fall back in love with LinkedIn, isn't it? I think for me, the key is we're all going, I'm a bit out, I've seen people go, I'm out of love with LinkedIn at the moment. But, you know, but how can we fall back in love with it? I think is a big thing for me, and for me too, you know, because I certainly have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn at times. So, you know, how we fall back in love with LinkedIn is being aware of us. Yeah.
It is, but also we can decide to do that. You know, there was this guy I was listening to.
Oh.
He was asked, how can we be happier? And his answer was, stop being unhappy.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Do you know what? Do you know sometimes, Ross, that it's the simple things that make a big difference, isn't it? Of course, just make that decision to go. I love LinkedIn. It's a great platform.
Exactly. Fall in love with it. It brings me great joy.
Yeah. It brings me a great joy. You know, I have fun things like this. I go live on LinkedIn, and I'm sure other people can find another reason for loving LinkedIn as well. But yeah, just make the decision to love it. I love that. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I feel like our time is done here. I'd love to know what everybody else thinks about that. You know, just decide to fall back in love with LinkedIn. That's it.
Well, yeah, and we can decide that we're miserable, or we can decide that we're happy, and so we can decide we don't like LinkedIn, or we can decide we love it. You know, it's just a choice, isn't it? We've all got choices.
We have indeed. We've got choices, and I absolutely love that. I think, you know, that's been the big. Does it bring me joy? And I'm just going to decide to love LinkedIn because you know it's a platform. Because what would I do without LinkedIn? Well, apart from me personally, but you know, what would we do without LinkedIn? You know, what does LinkedIn allow us to do? Like Richard said, to build his brand and stuff, to have a presence on there, to get known, to build a business. So it's about, you know, loving it for what it allows us to do.
Yes, yes. And being aware that however we feel, it's not LinkedIn that's making us feel that.
Yeah.
And we have a choice to feel how we want to feel. You know, we can either decide something's teaching us a lesson, or we can decide something else, but it's up to us in the end.
I love that, Ross. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And because I was going to, you know, I wanted some tips on what can people do differently. And I think that's it. That's it nailed. You know, just think differently about it.
Just think differently. Yes.
Yeah, think different. If anybody would like to sort of talk to you about self-awareness and, you know, or even your book club, how can they get hold of you? I know you're on LinkedIn, and we will put your LinkedIn profile URL on there. But
my LinkedIn. Yeah, so in the work I do around self-leadership and all that kind of stuff is it's all on my website actually, which is rosjones.co.uk.
Simple. And we will share the link about that. But yes, so please do get in touch with Ross. Yeah. For more insights like that. So any questions that you may have from attending today and joining us live or watching the replay, please do put those questions in there. I'd love to know your thoughts. I'd love to know if anybody is actually just going to go, I'm changing my mind about LinkedIn, and I'm just going to love it and just do what brings me joy on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'd love to know who's going to do that.
Thing is, like, yeah, or if I'm feeling out of love with it, what can I do to fall back in love with it? You know, we've got the answers inside.
Yes, exactly. We've got the answers inside, and I think that's the thing to remember. And and I'm just going to share this with Brenda. Brenda's just popped this in now. She says, I generally love LinkedIn, which is great, but some days a post goes nowhere. Yes, I agree with that. Posts sometimes just go nowhere, but I just try to accept it. And I think that's all we can do, isn't it? And that, yes, and again, that's just a LinkedInism, that sometimes your comments get more traction than your posts. But that's just, we just have to, as Brenda said, it's all learning, and you just have to move on. Yeah. So on that note, I really have to thank you, Ross, for joining me and sharing those insights. I think, you know, that's been hugely powerful for me, because just to go, well, just decide. That's a great reframe for me. So I have to thank you so much. And I want to thank everyone for joining us live today in this beautiful weather we're having in the UK. And until next month, I will see you then. So Karen, thanks very much for joining us. And thank you, Ross.
Thank you.